What's up, YouTube? Today I wanted to make a video kind of reacting or responding to Bernie Sanders' video yesterday, which was titled "There Are Two Americas."
What we are witnessing right now, right before our eyes, is the rise of two very separate and distinct Americas. One for the billionaire class and one for everybody else. In one America, the richest people are becoming obscenely richer and have never ever had it so good. And then there is a second America, an America where a majority of our people live and they are trying to survive paycheck to paycheck, and they are struggling to secure the very basic necessities of life. Nothing fancy. We're talking about food, healthcare, housing, education, and other basic needs.
While I agree with Bernie Sanders on most things, I think the elephant in the room and what he wasn't really addressing was the fact that I don't think the problem is the amount of money that these people have. I think it is what you can buy with that kind of money. And what do I mean by that? What I'm really talking about is the influence of money in American politics. We can look at kind of the results of what that has given us. You could name like the pharmaceutical companies and the opioid crisis, or like the military industrial complex and the multiple wars that we've gotten into as a result of that. And those are only two like really major things that have like a direct correlation that we can see. And I think you can look at the recent criticism of AIPAC and how people are no longer wanting the Israeli government to really be involved in our politics, or at least to lower the extent to which they are, some advocating complete removal of it. And I think overall that the real problem is that at the end of the day, this kind of money will override the power of the will of the American people. It's like it feels like a dollar is worth more than a vote at the end of the day. And obviously that's like a little hyperbolic, but I think I think the point still stands, where it's like, what is the point of engaging with our political system by voting when it just seems like the extreme wealthy will be able to influence whatever change they want. And on the topic of Bernie Sanders, I would say that a good example of this in my personal experience was the fact that his presidential run basically got tanked by the Democratic Party as a whole. For me personally, that was a huge black pill as far as not really believing in the system. And I think a lot of people my age, or even older at the time, that supported Bernie went through the same thing, where it's like, if they have the final say, then what ability do I as a citizen actually have to influence change? And I think that's a bad place to be at in a society, is losing faith in the political system that we have. Because you can look at kind of Trump's success, where he was labeled as like a chaos candidate. And I'm not trying to say that was the entire reason for him being successful, but I think that the fact that there is like a notable amount of people that voted for him for that reason, that's a bit nihilistic, and that's a really depressing way to approach politics, in my opinion. And it also highlights a big problem, which is the lack of faith in the system, and the fact that a presidential candidate will be determined to some extent by whoever can be like a middle finger to the system. And I don't think that's a good place to be at. But another problem is it deals with the recent news, where we had learned that the Biden administration had pressured Google to censor content creators that were going against the established narrative with like COVID or the vaccine. And I think that highlights a bigger problem, where basically it seems like the government is able to boss and bully these corporations to do what they want, but only when it serves their interest. If they have that ability, for one, then the fact that they're not doing anything about it also signifies that they're fine with it happening. And I think that's a bad place to be at, where it basically seems like a lot of our politicians are bought and paid for. I know, get your tinfoil hats on. But the problem with that is that contributes to an overall feeling of, the sense of hopelessness that I think a lot of people have as far as in our politics and even with our economy. And that's a bad trajectory to be on, because I think when people feel like they can't influence change through the system or like in peaceful ways, then I think people become desperate, and that, that leads to a whole nother set of problems to deal with entirely. But yeah, as far as having corporate money in our politics, I mean, hey, at least we'll get, a resort in Palestine at the end of the day, with that money, with that corporate money. I'm sure everyone wants that. But it just seems like the silence and the unwillingness to acknowledge this as a problem might lead to the conclusion that they're all, culpable, or that they're all fine with it happening. And that's like Occam's razor. It's like, that's if no one is talking about it and no one is willing to acknowledge this elephant in the room, then what other conclusion would someone be left to think, where it's like, if you're not willing to call this out or even address it, then you must be in on it, or at least that it's going on. And that leads to another issue entirely. And I think for this, you could compare it to how, like, they say that cops or like priests will defend their own by by defending bad apples and not really saying anything about them. I think the same can be said for this situation, where you have politicians who probably either A, know that it's going on but refuse to do nothing about it, or B, they're doing it themselves. I think those are the two, logical conclusions that you can come to. But yeah, overall, I think this is a big problem. I mean, like I said at the beginning of the video, we've seen the result of what having corporate financial influence in our political system does, and I think it isn't. I don't think it is good. I think it has led to a lot of bad outcomes in the last few years. But as far as what we can do to fix it, I mean, it's like, if the solution is you're in the government, the people that are able to fix it are not doing anything about it. And I think there needs to be more accountability in some way in regards to this. I mean, even if like we put all of the stickers of, like, we label them like a NASCAR race car, with like the stickers of where they're getting their money from labeled all over them or something like that. I mean, at least even then, at least we would have full transparency for, what kind of influence they will have if they're elected into office. But yeah, other than that, I think the only other way is if politicians try to legislate against having financial influence in politics. That's really the only way to prevent it from happening, because otherwise it's like money talks and bullshit walks, or in our case, fair elections walk, like is sacrificed on the altar of more money. And I don't think that's a good thing. But if you made it this far, thank you for watching. If you agree or disagree, please leave a comment, as part of the reason I make these videos is to have an open discussion about it, and to kind of like refine my own worldview against maybe someone who agrees or disagrees with me. But please consider liking and subscribing, and take care and have a great day.